Sure. Hey, my name is Bryan Hornung. I'm CEO of Xact IT Solutions. We are a cybersecurity company. We're one of 30 companies in the world that have the CompTIA Security Trustmark Plus cybersecurity certification. And I'm here today to educate parents and school educators about, the threats around cyber criminals and what they're doing with children's information. Children are increasingly the target because normally what we see is that adults already have established credit. They're monitoring that credit, and it's easier for a criminal to get caught using somebody who is actively using credit. When you're talking about children, typically children don't apply for credit until they're well into adult, like 18 years old plus. So if you think about it, if I'm a cyber criminal and I can ransomware a school, and before I deploy the ransomware, I steal as much data as I can from that school, and that includes personally identifiable information of all the students that are in that school. Imagine the average age of that child is, somewhere between 8 and 10 years old. That potentially means that I have about a decade's worth of time to exploit this individual's information. And most parents are not monitoring for this stuff. And, you're not going to find out about this until you actually go to apply for your first credit card or go for student loans. And you find out that, you might already have poor credit. They look for these types of profiles, right? They want as much runway as they can to potentially use this information. So, a 16-year-old versus an 8-year-old is much more attractive to a cyber criminal. It's actually worth more on the dark web. And the value of that increases, and people are willing to pay more for these things. And this information, these profiles of individuals are traded on the dark web every day. You can buy these things, quite frankly, for as little as like $4 a name. And then for less than $500, I could try to exploit, 100 kids. They're not all going to be successful, but for $500, if I can exploit one or two as a cyber criminal, I'm looking at these like I can potentially turn $500 into 10,000, 20,000, and then keep doing that over and over. I would recommend credit monitoring. It's inexpensive to monitor somebody's credit when they're young. I would advise maybe buying some kind of credit lock or credit monitoring plan that includes a family plan where you can add your children as part of that. Because quite frankly, when they're monitoring kids with these services, not as many things are coming up. So it shouldn't cost as much as maybe somebody who's past 18 and is actually applying for credit and has assets and, net worth and things like that. The burden of proof is on you as the consumer to prove that that's not your debt. And if you can't prove it, that could stick around for 7+ years. And that's kind of the rules we live by when it comes to credit. So you kind of put all these different factors together, and it's easy to see like this isn't going to be an easy situation for your child to get out of once they realize that they have this problem. Again, you're going to be in a situation when you figure this out where you're applying for a loan, you're trying to get into school, you're college, or you're trying to buy a house. And the last thing you want to find out when you are trying to buy a home, a lot of people's first home is a big deal. And the last thing you want to find out is that somebody's been using your credit unsavory for the last 5, 10, 15 years. It's interesting you asked that question because I actually have a friend who I went to high school with who was involved in something very similar. Their father had a gambling problem, and he unfortunately used their credit and two siblings' credit as well. So yeah, it was unfortunately for them, when they turned 18, credit was not an option for them. I don't remember exactly how they handled it, but that is actually, that is absolutely a criminal, offense. You could go file a criminal charge with local law enforcement, and they would have to investigate it. But it becomes a sticky situation again, right? Do you really want to go tell the police that your father used your credit and now you have no credit and he basically stole from you? Any child finds himself in that situation, and when they become 18, I would highly recommend that they go to the authorities and get that rectified, even if it means that their parent could possibly end up in jail. Because personally, for me, if my parents did that to me, I would look at that like, well, you didn't care about me, so why should I care about you at this point? Now, but that's everybody's got to handle their thing their own way there. So these are conversations that are important and need to be had, because not only are we in a world where everybody needs to be looking at their kids' credit and making sure that that's not being abused, but we also as parents need to be having conversations around how to balance a checkbook, how to do a budget and things like that, which quite frankly, I don't think that was, my parents and grandparents didn't grow up with those conversations. Number one advice would be to just make sure that you have parental controls somewhere in your home network and all the devices that your kids are using, and understand who they're interacting with, who they're talking to, because a lot of the things that we touched on here are true and they're real. We're also seeing cyber criminals using game platforms like Roblox and things like that to get information out of children and to target them that way. So you should really limit who your kids can interact with, and make sure that you know who they're interacting with. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. Facebook has built-in tools. A lot of the social media platforms have built-in tools. But you can't just blindly give your kid a device or a computer and think that they're going to do the right thing, or unknowingly just give people information because they think it's a friend. And kids are very easily manipulated in like Roblox to think that somebody that they've been interacting with for 15 minutes is now their friend, and now they're sharing information about where they live and all this other stuff, which could then lead to them going out of the Roblox platform and going on social media and digging for more information about you and about who you are. And it could lead to other things besides just credit theft and identity theft.